In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a custom data labels, and the focus of this is, for example, if we have slices here with a lower value, in that case, we want to show the values here above. And if the slice has a larger than, for example, or 3 or larger, in that case, it will show nicely here in the slice. So let's start to look how we can do this. So let's start to look how to add custom labels inside or outside of the Doughnut chart in Chartjs, depending on the size of the slice of that Doughnut chart. So what we're going to do is, first of all, get our default code or boiler template, which you can find on chartjs3.com, getting started, this specific link here, which is as well in the description box. Once you're on here, just copy this boiler template code, copy this. If you want to understand what it does, watch this video here that explains it all. So I'm going to paste this all in here. And once I did that, cut out the title and put that in here. There we are. Next, what I want to do is I want to put this on, let's say, I guess 50% or 45% in my case. That should be more than enough. Alright, so right now it's still bar chart. Once I convert it into a pie chart, it will have a different shape. So I'm going to say, yeah, or let's make this Doughnut chart. I like that a bit more. Save that, refresh. There we are. So of course we need to remove the scales, because the scales are not a part of a Doughnut chart. Remove all of this, and then what I want to do here, I want to do plugins and just remove the legend as well at the same time. Legend display equals false. Save this, refresh. There we are. So we have this now. Let's fine tune and make this just a bit more appealing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up here, or just in here, that's fine. Enter here, and I'm going to say here, cut out. Let's say here, quotation. Let's make this 90%. So what happens now is the cutout percentage makes the slice or the donut ring a bit more narrow, like this. Next, what we can do here, let's put in here like an offset, and that will make the donut ring, or the slices, the slices will then be a bit of, there's like some space between there. Of course you won't notice it too much, but once I make the border radius, you will see it becomes quite nice. So border radius, let's say give it 10 pixels, save that, refresh, and there we are. So this is quite decent. We could make this maybe 20 pixels, a little bit more round. There we are. Anyway, the focus should not be on making this round, the focus should be on the item. So what I want to do is, if we have like a item that is just below a certain value threshold, we want to put it outside. So we're going to have a line here pointing it outside, and if it's a large slice, in that case we say no problem, it should be shown inside. So let's start to do this. So to do this, what I need to do here in the options, or at least after the options, put a comma. I'm going to say plugins, and then I'm going to put a bracket. And then in here, we can say here custom data labels, because we're just going to build one from scratch. So then I'm going to say here constant, and let me just define this. So say / custom data labels plugin block. Then we have this, we say this equals that. I'm going to say ID will be equal to the custom data labels, which is just the same term here. I'm using that very consistent. So when would I like to draw these data labels? Well, after the dataset has been drawn, the data labels should be on top of it. So we say after data sets draw. So we draw first the dataset, and then we want to draw our text. This is logical, or else we'll be behind there and then it will overlap and then it will not be visible. Makes all sense. So we're going to say here chart, arcs, and the plugin options. Then in here we can start to work on it. I'm going to do here an object destructuring. If you don't understand object destructuring, make sure you watch the video in the description box, Chartjs object destructuring. So I'm going to say constant equals chart, and then in here what we can get, I'm not sure if we need the chart area. Well, we might need that, so I guess we should have that. So I'm going to get ctx at least, the data, the chart area, and within the chart area I'm going to say here top, bottom, left, right. Let's say here width and height. Well, we'll be needing definitely the width and the height. That will be important for us. So now we have this. Let's save these values here, so that if later on we reset it or restore it, then it will definitely only reset our values here. So basically we save this, meaning all these values here will be saved, and later on we will undo whatever we did here at the very end, so that Chartjs can just continue on with its own standard colors and values, whatever. So now what I want to do here is, first of all, we can just put in the item in here, or at least the values. So let's start with doing that one. That's the easiest part. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a data object, and this, or sorry, just an object, or sorry, not even an object. We're going to get the data object, which is this data value here, because it's in the data.datasets data, and then we're going to use that array as a for each, because it's an array, and we're going to loop through every one of those. So we're going to say data.datasets index 0, because we only have one data set and we want to only pinpoint that specific data set. Then I'm going to say .data, and then we're going to say here for each, meaning we're going to loop through every one of these array values individually. So what I'm going to say here, this here, we'll give this a shorthand now, and we call this our data point, which is a quite descriptive term. Then what we want to do as well is the index. So if ever we need the index, we have that here. Then I'm going to put in here arrow function expression, curly braces, and there we are. So now in here, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to define the font, or we can put it in there when I realize that maybe we need to have it later on as well. So what I'm going to do here, I just put it here above, because what I want to do is the font, but later on we'll be needing that, or it's alright. What I will do is we can move that later on. We're just going to start with the basics. ctx.font, because I'm getting ahead of myself and that will be probably hard to follow. So what we're going to do here, we say the font, and what I want with the font is basically this. I want to have a bold font. I want to have 12 pixels, and the font family will be sans serif, which is a default font family in Chartjs, and this structure is by default as well the same size except for the bold. If you don't want bold, you can remove that like that, but I'm going to put it bold so it's nice and clear. So then what I want to do is I want to get the color, and what I want to do with the color is basically I want to get whatever our border color defines here. So that's why we have the index here. So this will be very important. So I'm going to say ctx.fill style to color the text. And then what we want to do here is we're going to grab this, and then, we're going to get the value. So what is the value? Well, from the data. Oh, well, we don't have to do that. We can just get the data points, or, well, I'm afraid we cannot get the data points. And the reason why is because we already have the defined here. And I need the index here. So what we're going to do is we just say here data. We can just do this one. Data dot. We're just going to get, because we still have the data set. Here, index 0, and then we're going to say here border color. So we're going to do like this, and I say index, and the index will be this. So that's the easier way. If I would do it within here, I have to change this, but probably I have to do then a double for each loop, because we have multiple items here. So I want to avoid that. So now we have this one here. The next thing what I want to do is I want to draw the text so we can see the text truly here. So I say ctx dot, and I'm going to say here font or fill text, and this will be in parentheses, and then here we have three values: the text itself, comma, the x value, and the y value. So for the x and y, right now I'm just going to put in here, let's say 100 by 100. I'm not sure where exactly it will be positioned, somewhere here I guess, but that doesn't matter. Later on we're going to work on that. Next, what I want to do is I do want to get the for loop with the data, and we can just do that. In this case, I just want to show the numbers, number 18, 12, etc, etc. So that will be easy for us, meaning because we have the data point here that is already being defined. So if I save this, refresh, there you are. So as you can see here, it is working, but of course it looks kind of weird. So now what I want to do is I want to get it in the proper position. This is the X and Y position. So how do we get this? Well, luckily we have here a very, very useful function. I'm going to use this function now. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to define this, and what I can do here is probably just do it here above. So I'm going to say here the following: enter. I'm just going to put two enters. I'm going to say here constant, and this constant will be an object destructuring parentheses of X and Y. And before I even do this, I think I should show you exactly how we're going to get this. So what we really need to do here is basically I need a built-in Chartjs command, which is very, very powerful. Let me show you this one. It's basically chart.get data set meta index 0 in this case. So if I show this, save, refresh, open up developer tab. Alright, so the X is not defined, of course. This still doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to put here 100 and here 100. Save, refresh. Alright, so you get all of this data, and look at this here. We get all this data, and eventually what I will want to grab here is a very specific item, and there's not even this. I want to get a tooltip positioning. So to do that, all we need to here is going to say here dot data. Well, let's do that one again. Refresh. You can see we get here now a lot of information, although it still looks here quite identical. And let's see if we can find here maybe even the tooltip positioning. Doesn't show here because it's a function. So what I'm going to do here is data. I'm going to put in here the index. Let's save that and refresh. Now we still get the same items. Alright. Although maybe we start to see something here. Am I correct? No. So what I need to do here, final part of it, dot tooltip position. And we just put it like this. Save, refresh. So as you can see here now, what is happening? It moves, and you can see all of these X and Y values. And these X and Y values are directly linked with one of these specific slices. And basically it goes for the tooltip position, which is this center here. So what I want to do is just quite straightforward. I want to see the number 18 at the center of the slice, or at least center, which is in a rotated center basically. So I want to get it in here. So how do we do this then? We get all of this, but if I say here dot x, we already get the index here. It will grab here from a specific item. And if I guess it will look through all of this, you can see here this. Well, this makes sense. So that's why if you understand this is X and we also have for the Y, you also understand now why we have this object destruction will be equal to this. Because that is just a breakdown of those two values. So now we have that. I can remove this. I'm going to say here X, Y, save, refresh. Alright, so now we get it here, but if you look very carefully, we are not really in the center. Well, the truth is we are in the center. But we have still what we have to do here is what we call the baseline and the text alignment. So we need to do those two as well. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say here, I guess, enter ctx.text align equals center, save, refresh. So now you might see it's slightly more in the center, but this part here is still not in on the baseline. So I'm going to say enter ctx.text baseline, and the baseline, if you're not familiar with that, it's very similar with a cell in a table. You can put it top, middle, or bottom. So I'm going to say here, in this case, I want to have a middle, so we have center basically. Save, refresh, and now they're all in the center. Alright, so now we have this, and what I want to do is, the next part is, for example, I want to make sure that this number 3 will be out here. So for that, we have to do some additional work. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look into a if statement. And this if statement is very straightforward. We're going to say if, and we're going to say here, the data point, we're going to grab this. If the data point will be, well, let's say larger or equal to number, well, let's say number 3, that will be fine. And then I will just give it some smaller values. In that case, if this is the case, I'm going to grab, I guess, all of this. I'm going to cut out all of that, put it in here. Alright, so then what I want to do is, well, maybe we can even move this here above, or are we allowed to do that? We can put it here up. I want to cut this out, put it here up. And the reason why is that we might need to use this later on as well. So if we do it within the if statement, we might lose this functionality. So that's why I want to keep these object or this constant of X and Y still intact. So we have that here for the else. So else, we're going to do here something. So if I save this now, refresh, alright. So let's change this and go up here. Let's say here 1.5. Let's say here's another 1.5. And finally here up 1.5. Save. Refresh. There we are. We have 1, 2, 3. 3 items that's not being shown. Or that doesn't show anymore. Which is correct because they are basically being filtered out right now. So that is now for else item. So what we want to do here is basically this. First of all, we want to make sure that we're going to put in the items, and what I realize is maybe we can just cut out this, and the reason why is I want to make sure that these color and the font style, everything should be fine. That is probably what I was thinking further. I want to put it here outside, but I cannot do that. Why? Because this might be a this is the index, so it's in the for each loop. However, we have to make sure it's outside the if statement, or else we're missing a crucial part of the data. So what we're going to do here for the else is basically two things. First of all, I want to create a line, and this line should go to the right or to the left if you're on this side. And then we go also to the right if it's on this side, but also going up or down depending on the halves. Meaning here, this is below halfway, then we should point it down, not up. And this one is up, so this should be here, this should go up and then to the left side, and here this one should go up and then to the right side. And later on, if we would have one down here, we should have one going down to the right side here. Understanding the center of this, and basically the center will be the guideline of that. So how do we do this? Well, first of all, let's start to make two more constants. So these constants are based on the width here, and I'm going to call this the half width. And the half width is basically the width divided by 2. And then I'm going to do constant here, and this will be the height. And this will be the height, or the half height. So now we have those in place, we can start to work on this. And what we want to do here is to draw a line. So let's start to create a line here. So I'm going to say here, ctx.begin path, indicating that we're going to create a shape that is independent from anything else. So it's a fresh new shape. And then I'm going to say here, ctx.move to. And the move to will eventually define the position of the line. And I do realize here that maybe we need to give it a color as well. And what I want to do is I want to grab this color here. I'm just going to put it in here. But I'm going to say here not fill style. Why? Because the line is not a fill because fill is targeted for the background color. So I'm going to say stroke, which is a line for this here. So basically the border color. You can say it like that. Okay, this is the border color as well here. So that's the same methodology. So what I can do here now is I want to get, of course, the position, and the starting position would be then the center here, the center of the slice. Remember, we have the x and y, and that's why we move this up here, so we can reuse this here. So I say x, y, very simple. And then what I want to do is I'm going to say ctx.line to draw the first line. So this line, I'll make it quite simple for now. I'm just going to say here will be x plus 15, and then maybe we can do also y plus 15. So if I save that, and let's see here, oh, of course this doesn't work yet, because if I save this and refresh, nothing happens. You might say, why is it not drawing? Well, of course we need to say ctx.stroke to indicate, to draw the line. Refresh. There we are. As you can see here, we're doing this now, but I'm not satisfied because apparently our slice is so huge it doesn't understand, or it doesn't even reach the bottom. So instead of 15, or at least the y here, maybe we can do this 25. Alright, so that looks slightly better, but it's still pointing down. I don't want it to point down, I want to point it up. So don't worry, we're going to work on that. Well, what we can do is let's start to work on it right now. So what I'm going to do here is, this here must be a constant, which just checks one thing. Are we halfway above on the y value? Are we half up, or are we half down? And that's for the y. That's basically this one here. So then it should be plus or minus, because if we do minus here, you'll see it jumps up. There we are. But later on, if we are somewhere down here, it needs to go jump down. So that's number one. And secondly, do we need to go to the left side or to the right side? And as you can see here, this needs to go definitely to the left side. So we have two items. That's this what defines left or right, and this one defines up or down. So I'm just going to put this back to original state here, and then we're going to create a simple constant. So this constant, and this constant we can say here x line, and this x line will define left or right. So we're going to say here x will be, is the x larger than or larger or equal to what exactly, remember this one here, the half width. And the half width is just define the width from left to right divided by 2. Very simple. So this is the center, or basically this will be the center. And then it says, alright, it's smaller, in that case go to the left side. If it's larger, go to the right side. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to say here half width. If half width, if this is true, in that case, I'll say plus 25. Else, if it's false, we'll say here, or maybe we can say here, x plus 25. Then we're going to say here, if it's false, we say x minus 25. And then we can grab this, put that in here. And I say 25, but it should be probably 15 because our line here, our line extension was only 15 pixels. So we do this on 15, but you can guess later on, 25 will be for the height. So there we are. Alright, so it does now understand left or right. So that's fine. Same story now. I'm going to copy this. No, not like that. I'm going to undo that. Put it down here. Y line. Y here. Half height. And this will be the Y 25. Y minus 25. Save. Copy this. Put that in here. Save this. Refresh. There we are. Now absolutely wonderful because now it starts to understand nicely what it needs to do. Alright, so the next thing what I want to do is I want to make another line connected from here to there, and maybe that could be maybe 15 pixels, maybe 20 pixels of line. You can define the length yourself, doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to say here, well we have this, and then I guess what we can do here, we just maintain this, but we're going to do here plus, let's say 15. If I do this, say refresh, there we are. And as you can see here, it now points always to the one direction. Of course, we need to change that depending on our situation. So what I'm going to do here, this here must be again calculated. So what I'm going to do here with the calculation, what you can do here is we're going to say here, let's say the extra line. I guess this should be plus an extra line, because that's the second line that we have. So we're going to do here constant extra line equals, and then I guess what we can do here is we can just grab all this information here, copy this, do that, and then remove here the x. This is only plus or negative 15. Very straightforward. If the half width, alright, so that should be fine. If I save this now, refresh, there you are. So that looks really, really nice. So this works. Next thing is, of course, we want to put the value in here. So how are we going to put the value in here? Well, luckily that's very straightforward. You can just grab this text field. We already have all of the items already above, so it understands what we want to show. So then I'm going to put it here, enter, enter. If I paste this in here right now, you will see probably, or you might say, all right, we just need to copy this, put it in there, and problem solved. Well, that's not that easy. As you can see here, we have two issues here. First of all, we are exactly on top of it, and we need to change that. So we need to give some extra padding, basically. And next here, we have this clipped off effect. So let's solve the clipped off effect first, because that will impact also some of the pixels. But luckily, that's all very easy to solve. So what we're going to do here, in the options, enter. I'm going to say here layout, and I'm going to put a padding in here. I'm going to say padding. And I'm going to give this, let's say here, maybe 30 pixels. Put a comma here, save, refresh. Alright, that's number one here. So if we do this, what I need to do here is basically we have some additional space, which might sometimes create a mistake in our calculation here with the width. So what I want to do with the width, I'm going to say here plus, we have this, the width divided by 2. Then I'm going to say plus the left amount of pixels. Why? Now is there a certain amount of pixels here at the left side and at the right side. But if you want to have the center, the width is now shorter than this. Basically, it copies from this to this point. But we have 30 pixels of padding. So basically, we are missing 60 pixels. So that's why we're going to say here, plus left gives it plus 30 pixels on one side. And that's the only thing we need to do here. I say here, plus top. This will be necessary as well if you have a legend, by the way, because then things are slightly, we have some pixel differences. So this is very important to do. And if you have maybe something you notice that this is starting to move to here and you don't understand why, that is the reason. Basically, these items are then probably incorrectly calculated, so make sure you do this one here. Alright, so now we have all of that logic, so that's nice. Next thing what we want to do here now is start to look on our text. So our text, because we're almost done here, I want to push this text a little bit to the right or to the left, but it will depend on the width of the text, especially if you have more items. Imagine this would be 1.5555 or something like that. You get very, very weird items, or at least you get a long amount of text here, like that, as you can see here. So what we want to do is we want to have not a fixed amount, but we want to calculate what is the width of the text, and that will define how many pixels we move to the left or the right. So what I'm going to do here, in here, we have this here, and we have here the extra line that basically calculates this, but then what we need to do here is basically width, text width, basically, text width. This one right now we don't have defined, so I'm going to create one right now. So I'm going to say here, constant text width equals, and then what we're going to say here for the text width equals ctx dot. And I'm going to say measure text. And what is the text that we want to measure? The other one we call the data point. That is our text. And we say here dot width. This is just a canvas command that calculates the width of the text. So quite straightforward here. We have this text width. So if I save this now, refresh. So this looks fine, but we're still off, as you can see here. So what we need to do here now, of course, not only this, I realized that I went ahead of myself. Let's remove that. I need to now calculate how do we need this text width to be positive or negative. This will depend, of course, on this item here, or basically the half width. Are we within the lower half, or are we on the half, or basically are we higher than half, or are we shorter than half, or is the value lower or larger than? So here I'm going to say constant, and let's make this very simple. Position, which is basically reference to this, and then we're going to say here, well, we can just calculate this. Going to copy this. Let's copy this in complete. And then we're going to say here, we're going to say x would be larger. If this is true, what I want to do is I want to grab this one, because then it's a plus value. And if it's not true, so meaning that the value would be smaller than the half, then I want to say this would be minus or a negative value. And if we do this, then we can just copy this and we just say here plus that. Save, refresh, and there we are. Absolutely stunning. So now, final test. Let's put everything in a minus and see if it all works, including the ones at the very bottom. Save, refresh, and there we are. So as you can see here, if you look here very carefully, if I refresh here, it moves, but then after it recalculates at the very end, and then it positions it nicely. And you can see here we're really exactly pointing at the arrow of the tooltip as well. So, and all of these values go up, and this one goes down. It really recognizes everything accordingly. If you feel like this is too close to here, you can of course extend the lines here. I think that is probably this one here. You can extend this one, or you can extend this one. That's for the width left and right. So I guess here you could do maybe 30 if you don't enjoy or feel like it's too close. Save that, refresh. If you do this, maybe you might clip off certain values at a certain point. Then you need to increase your padding here. So that's very important to understand. However, as you can see here, this looks absolutely stunning. And now we have this nice item, and let's put this back, or let's do everything, or at least some items higher than, or everything of 3 and equal. So if we do that, you can see here, these are like that, there, and there. Absolutely stunning. And that's basically it. So if you enjoyed this video, and maybe you have a legend here, in that case, you have some issues with padding or margin. Basically, what you need is a margin between there. In that case, I'm going to recommend you this video, which is how to add margin in Legend in Chartjs, because this one is a quite tricky one. Chartjs don't have an easy solution, so this is the solution for that. So you can force a space between the legend and your chart area.